The home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Just when you thought Big Game Bob might be done completely with college football. You know, he came out of retirement a little bit for the XFL a few years back when the COVID crap shut it down, and then he coached the bowl game for Oklahoma when Lincoln Riley did the shady shit that Lincoln Riley does. And then he went back to the XFL, and what did Bob do? Old Big Game Bob seems like he's found his niche again. Seems like he's found that flame. He's relit the fire, so to speak, as he won a championship, the XFL championship, which is now fueling fire that maybe, just maybe, old Bob Stoops may not be done. Bob Stoops may be coming back to college football. Let's talk about it. Well, here we go again. It's another episode off and running. Once again, the Outlaw Posse come on up in here. The Outlaw Posse is now in effect. This is the Outlaw of College Football. It can also be found on Twitter at OCF Productions. Now, getting right to it here. Saw an article the other day that I was reading from fansided.com. It was sent to me by Brandon Dunn. As Fansided seems to think there's some rumblings and rumors out there, and before the Oklahoma people get in here and start going off on me and going off on Fansided, it's just a topic for discussion. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it is a possibility. As much as Bob Stoops did love Oklahoma, the right contract come along, the right team, Bob may just try his hand at it once again. Much to the dismay of a lot of Oklahoma fans out there that probably wouldn't be too keen on Bob taking another college job. But Fansided come up with a top 5 teams. So I'm going to go down this list with you guys. And you guys and gals, tell me in the comment section what you think about this. Whether these 5 teams are valid destinations, or if you can think of other destinations that you might pique Bob's interest to come out of retirement for college football. Number 5, Texas A&M. As you know, Jimbo Fisher has been having a little bit of trouble here and there. Come back off a decent season, and last year had a pretty horrific season, although they upset LSU at the end of the year. As it says in this article, they were the first team in the SEC eliminated from bowl contention. And a guy getting paid upwards of $100 million over 10 years, or whatever it is that he's making, should at least be getting Texas A&M in the Independence Bowl or something like that, you would think, right? So they come back and they hired Bob Petrino, which is, like this guy referred to, is like putting a Band-Aid on cancer. I just don't know if it's going to work out, because these two guys are pretty combustible elements alone by themselves sometimes, let alone together. So we shall see. If Petrino can keep the old Jack in the Box from popping out, then Petrino is a great offensive mind. It may just it may work out for Texas A&M. We won't have to worry about all this talk. But Texas A&M was on their list as a possible candidate because of the money they have and the fact that they might be able to lure Bob out of retirement. And Bob knows the area. He knows Texas and Oklahoma and all that stuff. Number 4, once again, a Texas team, the Houston Cougars. Now, this one on the list, this one sort of puzzles me. I don't really know if Bob would go to Houston. Houston is a Power 5 team officially now, but Houston just doesn't have that flair about it to me. They don't have the tradition. They don't have, to me, they don't have the possibility of contending for national championships. Not in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong. They could prove me wrong. Houston's a nice, big city that could, with the right person, could recruit the athletes there to make it a powerhouse. So I could be wrong, but I don't think Bob would consider Houston. That's just my opinion. Number 3 on the list is the Florida Gators. As you know, the Florida Gators is where Bob Stoops really became famous. He was a great defensive coordinator under Steve Spurrier, who was mainly known for offense and couldn't get his defenses together. Brings Bob in. Florida wins the national championship, right? I think Bob was on that team. I think he was the defensive coordinator for the Florida Gators the year they won the national championship. I could be wrong about that. Correct me in the comment section if I am wrong. But Steve Spurrier loved Bob Stoops. And if Steve Spurrier loved Bob Stoops, then if the Florida job comes open, because it seems like Billy Napier, although he's only been here 1 year, it seems like the Florida people are already getting restless, which is no big surprise because that's nothing but a cult down there in the swamp. But if Spurrier were to sign off on this, I think Florida would make a run at Bob Stoops. And Bob Stoops, I think, would listen because he used to coach there, and Bob Stoops knows that area as well. It's very familiar to him. I think it's really important for Bob to have familiarity with the program if he's going to do this. Number 2 on the list. This may be a surprise to a lot of you Oklahoma Sooners out there. Oklahoma. They're thinking that if for some reason Brent Venables doesn't work out, if he can't get his ducks in a row and he ends up going John Blake on y'all, that Bob Stoops would come in and pick up the mantle and try to re-arise or resurrect Oklahoma back at least to the point where he had it when he left. Now, Bob Stoops wasn't winning national championships in his last few years at Oklahoma. He was making decent BCS bowls off and on. But I think if for some reason Venables did not work out, which I would think it would probably take about 3 seasons for that to happen, Bob may entertain the idea of coming back. He could pull like a Bill Snyder, right? Like with Kansas State. And number 1 on their list is the Iowa Hawkeyes. You're like, why would he go to Iowa? Such a mid-card program for so long. Kirk Ferentz, probably the most overrated coach of all time. How he's kept his job for so long, I don't know. I guess because it's Iowa. But the reason why he would be interested in Iowa, as a lot of you probably know, that is his alma mater. That is where Bob Stoops went to school. Now, if he were to be able to keep defensive coordinator Parker in tow, along with his inventiveness when it comes to defenses and bring in a good offensive coordinator, because you need to get rid of Brian Ferentz. The nepotism that's going on there with Ferentz and his son is pretty much killing Iowa. I mean, we ain't really saying about nepotism with Bob, because Bob did have his brother as a defensive coordinator there for a little bit, right? So I think Bob would give a lot of credence and a lot of consideration to coaching Iowa. He wouldn't have as much pressure on him either. Iowa, while it's a big-time program and a Power 5 school, as you can see, Ferentz has kept his job for, over 20 years now? And the dude probably averages only 7 wins, maybe 8 wins a season. So it'd be an easy job for Bob to slide into and not feel the heat and the pressure as much as he did when he was, at Oklahoma. Because Oklahoma's a blue blood. Now, my list, teams that may be considered that they are not thinking about, that could be a surprise to a lot of you people. To me, he could also consider Ohio State if something were happen to Ryan Day, if he was to get a job in the NFL or something like that, or they, for some reason, were spastics and decided to fire him because he can't beat Michigan now for some reason. Bob is from Youngstown, Ohio, so that would be a natural fit for Bob. Once again, there's that word familiarity with Bob. Notre Dame, it's a Catholic school. I think Bob's Catholic, not sure about that. I think the high school he went to was a Catholic high school. So Notre Dame would probably also be one of those jobs that Bob Stoops may consider to come out of retirement. And the last one is pretty selfish on my part. But as you know, Saban's getting up in years, so it would not surprise me if Alabama were to be one of those teams that Bob would consider. It would not surprise me if Alabama made a run at Bob Stoops if Nick Saban were to retire in the next 2 or 3 years. So, that's my list of possible candidates and programs that Bob could consider to come out of retirement for. You guys and gals, drop in the comment section. Tell me what you think about those candidates and those programs as a possible destination. Also, like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Also, we have a Outlaw of Posse membership now that you can do. Speaking of which, got our first 4 horsemen. We got 4 members out of the gate. Eric Taco Marino and Marty Keene, Sheldon Lamy, and Tim Gillespie are our first 4 horsemen of the Outlaw Posse. If you guys and gals want to join in and become a part of the growing posse, by all means, sign up. It's not about $2.99 a month. What is it, 75 cents a week? Y'all do the math for me. And as always, KMCA. To all the other teams, class is now officially dismissed.